Ghost Stories is an extremely generic Scooby-Doo-like anime. Is what I would say if it didn't have one of the greatest dubs of all time. Before I begin, if you haven't seen or heard of it, Ghost Stories is an anime that was adapted in 2000, but was later dubbed to English in 2005. Due to it being considered a flop in Japan, when dubbing it, the studio told the voice acting crew to quote, do whatever it took to sell the show. And that's basically how we ended up with scenes like this.
Have you accepted Jesus as your personal savior?
No, I'm Jewish.
Or this.
So when are the hookers showing up?
Or even this.
Come on, jump.
I said jump!
Now this series is a big piece of anime history. The reason being, well, something like this probably wouldn't happen nowadays. Because it isn't exactly the most politically correct show out there.
Think of a big black man chasing you!
This video is probably gonna get demonetized. Ghost Stories is essentially about some elementary schoolers who fight ghosts that are running rampant in their town. That's it. That's the story essentially. Yep, it's pretty basic. Also, I don't know if they gave us the location where this takes place, but in all honesty, it doesn't really matter anyways. Probably some small town in Japan. Now to start off, I'm just gonna give a brief intro to each defining trait the dub portrays these characters as. First, we've got Satsuki, the main protagonist who flashes the boys her panties every episode. Then Keiichiro, Satsuki's younger brother, who everyone considers to be mentally challenged even though he's like a kindergartner.
Obviously. Which way did he go?
Momoko, the former drug addict, now born-again Christian who can't help to mention Jesus in every sentence she speaks.
Oh, Satsuki, let's sing. Jesus loves me. Come on, you know the words.
Oh god, you can't make this shit up. And then we have Leo, who they only portray as the nerdy Jewish kid.
How in the world did kids ever get laid before the internet? Praise Jehovah.
And lastly, Hajime, the dude that's always after Satsuki's panties, among other things.
It looks like this is it, my dear Hajime.
I'm not giving you a reach around.
Oh yeah, and the cat who's possessed by a demon, Kaya.
Run! She's a ghost and a bitch!
So if you can't tell, this takes the original story and puts a little twist on it. But if the dub never happened, I highly doubt anyone would have watched this. The reason being, it's just so generic. Especially nowadays when ghost hunting and all that has been basically played out so many times. I could definitely feel that the dub was trying to compensate for the lack of creativity the show had. And to some end, I felt fatigued by its repetitive nature of each episode being a different ordeal with ghosts Satsuki's mom's dealt with when she was a child. Plus, some of the plot elements are so blatant and awful ripoffs that even the people dubbing it had to point it out.
Run, Satsuki! Run from yet another Japanese horror movie knockoff! Run!
And normally this wouldn't be my type of series since I'm not really a fan of episodic shows. But the dub compensated for what Ghost Stories was lacking for the most part. I mean, there's only so much they can fix through voice acting. They make fun of most, if not all, the elements that the show repeatedly uses, like Satsuki forgetting for the millionth time that all the ways to seal the ghosts are literally in the book her mom made.
I forgot my Bible. So maybe you should look at your mother's book. Oh yeah.
She forgets about that damn book every episode, I swear. Or the fact that every incident involving ghosts has some root at the old schoolhouse, but they never make the connection for some reason till the last second. I personally love that they made fun of these glaring issues that even I noticed a few times before they even mentioned them. It added a nice sense of self-awareness to the characters, and I just always genuinely enjoy when the fourth wall is broken. But I feel inclined to mention, if you're not really a fan of, well, humor that makes fun of everything and everyone, this probably isn't the show for you. I would say this is the anime equivalent to South Park or Family Guy as far as humor goes. They don't really discriminate against anyone, it's all pretty much free game, and if you can't handle that, well, just don't watch it. But that's part of the reason I mentioned earlier that a dub like this wouldn't happen nowadays. Just because this was made at a time where, at least I feel, people were less sensitive to comedy. I know there's always this big debate about where to draw the line, but in my opinion, there are very few things that should restrict comedy. As long as the joke purely isn't coming from a place of hate, for the most part, I think it's fine. Obviously there's a lot of factors involved as well, but I know not everyone thinks the same way, and that's perfectly fine. But for those who do enjoy this type of comedy, you will find a lot to laugh at. Sure, there are some dull moments here and there, and it starts off a bit slower than I would like. Oh, and some of the jokes are a little dated as well, so don't be surprised if they mention a certain celebrity that you don't recognize the name of, because that happened to me at least a dozen times.
I think Fry's an asshole too, but you think Winfrey never gilded the lily?
Who the hell is Fry and Winfrey? But other than that, I can't say I found much else wrong with the series. The jokes for the most part are crazy and come from out of nowhere sometimes.
Hang on, I see a roll
Wait,
down door
what's
I've
going
never
on?
used before.
But that's part of the reason they made me laugh so much. Also, each character has a unique trait, no matter how offensive it is, so it's easy to tell them apart. Which I assume was maybe one of the problems they had in the sub, since none of them have a particular role in ghost hunting, or the story really. And the story, albeit bland and full of knockoffs from other horror tropes, was still able to be interesting because of the dub. And even though they did their best to fix the script, I could still plainly see the flaws, which at some points those flaws made me grow bored of the show entirely, and I came close to not finishing it. But once I got to the end, I can wholeheartedly say that the ending was kinda trash. I don't really know what they could have done to save it, since the original was so mediocre in the first place, but I think the ending was one of the lowest points in the series. And I commend the whole crew who did the English dub for this series, since it's the one saving grace and the sole reason it's still being watched and talked about almost 2 decades later. So I'm gonna have to give Ghost Stories a 7.5. The dub is absolutely legendary, but can only make up for so much with such a basic premise. And honestly, I probably would have given this an 8 if some of the jokes didn't age so poorly. Although I will say that I think more series that perform terribly should get this treatment. But I guess since this is the only one of its kind, that could kind of make the charm go away. I guess we'll never know. Also, if you want some more info on the series, or a deeper look into how the dub came about, then I highly recommend you guys go check out Scamboli Review's video on Ghost Stories. Seriously though, if you haven't by now, go check him out. He makes some awesome videos. Anyways guys, I want to hear your opinion. Did you like Ghost Stories, or did you find it to be way too overhyped? Let me know down in the comments. And if you liked the video, don't forget to drop a like and consider subscribing. It really helps out the channel. Also guys, don't forget to go follow me on Twitter, since that's where I post all the updates on the channel as well. Anyways, that's all for me. Thanks guys. Later.